Many Flesh and Blood players, myself included, believe that Terra was the Armory deck coming out at the end of this year. And with the spoiler that that deck is instead the brand new hero, JARL, many Flesh and Blood players are now asking the question, Terra who? Because why have Earth when you can have Ice and Earth, not to mention a big ol' axe? A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast, and thanks for tuning in today as we are talking the Super Armory deck, the Armory deck Origins, JARL VETREIDI, I think is the way you say that, but oh my goodness, this came out of, I'm not going to quite say left field, but it certainly was a surprise, but a welcome one, and you can tell because the community is super excited about this one. And actually, the timing was great, so I was able to meet one of my Louisiana boys, Todd, and his wife were up. I was able to share a cheeky beer with them, and he mentioned that he's a Guardian main, and he's like already way in, and I think he's not unique in the world, right? A lot of folks are very excited for the return of Ice, so we'll see how that goes, right? A lot of people are scared about it. I personally am in the camp that Ice is okay. Instant Ice is not okay, right? That's my camp. And then, Oldhim Crown of Seeds, I think that was a different problem. So I don't think that was a nice problem. So let's go in this today, right? The Armory deck we've seen there, the art's not pretty cool. The art's really cool. We still have a big old axe. He's very clearly Mr. Mangle. And shout out to Steven. We're going to call him Jared. We're going to call him Jared. And also, by the way, I put a lot of work into this stupid thing, like more work than I should have for this little backdrop in the thumbnail. So let me know if you appreciate it. All right, so the overview for this thing, so we're going to go through the overview, but we're also going to talk some strategy on this one, right? Because it's been announced for about a week now. I'm not, this is not just a hype video. Let's talk a little bit of strategy list, okay? So this thing's $60. That is very interesting. This is, I think it's fair to say that this is not a new player product, right? I think that's fair. I don't think that, just stick with me here, right? I don't think $60 is new playerable, right? I think that this is instead targeted towards enfranchised players to hop, skip, and a jump them to where they need to be with JARL. And I don't think that's a problem statement, right? But I think as long as we're not kidding ourselves that this is a new player product, I think this is fine, right? Because you're going to get, when we say, oh, well, you get a legendary, kind of, it's a legendary rarity, but it doesn't really mean that in this, you know what I mean? It's not like the Majestic from here is any, well, I guess there'd be 3 of the Majestics, fair enough, but if he has a Majestic equipment, it's not like that Majestic equipment is any more actually rare than the L, right? So the only reason they have that is because we do, of course, have the Guardian Mastery set coming out. I think it's March or April of this year. It's very reasonable to assume that we could see, I don't think you're going to see his unique cards get reprinted because they really just have shown they don't do that, right? They want you to go buy the product. But I think he gets additional support in that in some way, and maybe that's when we see Adult Terra. Maybe. We will see. But we know there's going to be unique cards in that set for sure. So, like I said, you get the things. You get a ton of Majestics, but again, they're Majestics that some of them are reprinted, right? We have the Mangles being reprinted, we know, which is really funny. We also have Unforgetting Unforgiving, Crumble to Eternity, and Channel Mount Ice. We'll talk about all these in a little bit. But one thing I do think was funny is as soon as he was spoiled, you can actually go see it on TCG Player. Mangle popped, which is, it makes no sense at all because we actually know that Mangle's in the deck. So I don't really know why Mangle popped. Let me know below if you know why Mangle popped. Obviously it was some people trying to get rich, but it doesn't make any sense. It should actually have gone down, if anything, right? So anyway, that is what it is. So JARL VETREIDI, right? Mr. Frostbite himself. Whenever you play an ice card, create a Frostbite in an opponent's exposed equipment zone. Okay. Essence of Earth and Ice. So he's angry Oldhim, right? That's not true. He's Earth and Ice like Oldhim, but he doesn't really remind me of Oldhim at all. And he's really cool armor, the big helmet and all that. So this is very interesting. Now I do want to give a shout out to Scott. Scott's, as many of you know, he's a local judge in the area. And I did reach out to him just for clarification on this, that The frostbites that go into those equipment zones are still treated as any normal frostbite, right? So at the end of your turn, even if you haven't done anything, they would still go away. And obviously when you play a card, you'd pay them off. So it's really just an addition, having the open zone is really just an additional hoop for Jarl to jump through in order to play that, right? So when he plays the ice card, he can throw the frostbite, but he has to have gotten the equipment gone first, right? It has to be an empty zone in order to do that. And so if you really think about this functionally, he really, there's all these dreams of like, oh, I could have 4 frostbites in there. Functionally, he's probably only going to have like 1 frostbite, right? And that's even if they have like 2 zones empty, like it's probably going to be hard with the way Guardians play to have more than, not hard, but most of the time you're going to have 1. It's doable to have 2. Having 3 seems not feasible, right? That's kind of where my head is at. Again, we'll see what the package is, but like, he's a Guardian, right? He wants to throw big stuff, and we've seen he wants to throw big stuff because it's Mangle and doing all that. So that's kind of where I'm seeing it at, is most of the time it's going to be 1 frostbite. It's kind of how I see it. That's what I think anyway. Let me know if you agree below. Let me know if you agree, or if there's, I get it. There's crazy plays. Like, I get it. But I'm just saying, just being reasonable here. All right, so let's talk about unforgiving with the mango, or mango, with mango spice. Maybe, no, that might be a thing now. Either way, so when this defends, if the attacking hero controls equipment with a -1 counter, which is really not that hard to do, and in fact he has cards that just outright do it, let alone the block thing, you may search your deck for Mangle, banish it, and shuffle. So this is crazy good, right? So as a block, yes, it's not a D-react, we get it, but we've seen how effective they can be with Victor, right? So with Victor, you have Test of Strength, you get the gold, you get the draw. Well, this is like straight up better because you get a tutor off of it, right? So that's pretty crazy. I think this is pretty crazy good. And, sure. And like, the thing is, you can even, like, if you draw a Mangle and like turn 0, turn 1, like you can pitch it. And it's right, like and then play your other cards, right? Because you're playing a bunch of like 4s and 5s as a Guardian anyway, probably, right? We'll see what his package ends up looking like. But Guardian's got plenty of 4s to play, right? So you pitch it. Who knows what his chess piece will look like? Will he use Tectonic? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Right? But either way, you get to go tutor this card. Not in your hand, granted, but it's pretty good. It's like more than pretty good. It's like really good. Next, we have Crumble to Eternity. And you see that I have a trifecta of cards here because they are very relevant for the ongoing conversation, right? So Crumble to Eternity, this is the card that lets you just put a -1 on. Right? So before we get into the rest of these cards on here, let's really think about what an early 1 counter translates to. Right, so if you have let's take Brave Forge Bracers, right? I'll throw it up on the screen, okay? Battle Worn, right? Defense for 2, Battle Worn, right? So your first defense is 2, your second defense is 1. If you throw a -1 counter on that before they defend, you're not getting 1 value. You're not getting -1 value. You're getting -2 value off of that, right? That's good, right? If you throw it on a one of the like Mechanologist equipment, you'd actually be getting a 3. Right? Because it wouldn't be the 3 block, you'd only get the 2 block and the 1 block. Really good. Really good. Okay, so that in of itself would be fine. If I just had a card that could do that, I think it would be fine, especially as a blue that blocks 3. This is an ice also, by the way. Well, it's an ice earth. Very relevant for what we talk about next. But then, at the beginning of your action phase, you're next, obviously, you destroy this and you get Dominate. Whoa! Card's crazy good. Obviously earlier is better, so you can put minus counters on, but set up your Bengals. Crazy good. This is super exciting, right? Then on top of that, you have Oak and Old, which, by the way, is not an Oldhim. Like, I keep forgetting that this not, obviously during the Starvo days, we all realized it, right? But I think everyone was like, oh, it's an Oldhim spec. It's got Oldhim on it. It's a dual fuse thing. It's his thing. Well, it's not. And this is right up Jarl's alley. This is a 3, okay? If it was fused, it gains +2, Dominate, and if it hits, they put 2 random cards from their hand on the bottom of their deck in any order. It's not a same as a Crippling Crush, but in terms of them going to the discard, but it does the same thing. The trick here is that the only way to, it's not one of those cards that's like Earth Fuse and Ice Fuse, and then our powers combined, Captain Planet. No, you have to do both. And one of the cards that did that was, well, the card that did that singularly was Pulse of Icenloft. as a legendary. Now we have Crumble to Eternity, which you can run 3 of. So you have 4 targets in your deck that are single fuse Oak and Old, right? So, because if you think about it, right, to get a double fuse off Oak and Old, so you play it, you pay for it, and then as the additional cost, right, you can't obviously fuse the card that you're paying for, right? We all know that at this point, right? You're looking at a 4-card hand in order to Oak and Old. Now, that's super good. You're going to do that, but now you have multiple targets that let you 3-card hand Oak and Old. Even better. So this is really very threatening. It's like, he's got Oak and Olds. He can tutor Mangles when he needs them. He can put -1 counters on your equipment. Pretty good. Pretty good. And then we come to Channel Mount Ison. Now, so this one is kind of his, like it's his Frost Hex of a sort, right? So at the start of each hero's turn, they lose health equal to the number of frostbites in their equipment zones. And then it's got Channel Ice, right? So you do the channel thing. Okay. Now this is a 0, which is interesting in terms of like the channels. Okay. It is an action. So in of itself, when you play it, actually can put, because it's ice, right? You can put a frostbite in the zone. So that's kind of cool. And you keep this around for 1-2 turns. It shouldn't be that hard to do. Again, though, I think a lot of people, when we were thinking that there was a small period in which we're like, oh, well, maybe the frostbite's going in the equipment zones, like just stay there because they're not in the arena. They are, by the way, and they don't, just to be clear. So back to my statement of like how many frostbites are you really going to have at any given time in their equipment zones? Probably 1 or 2, right? The turn this comes out, you're playing an ice, and then you've probably got another ice to play, right? Maybe, probably, right? So you're doing 2 that turn. And then the next turn, can you do 2 again? Because you basically have to have an ice go again. Or an instant, I suppose, right? Or an instant. But you get my point, right? Most of the time, you're going to be maxing at 2. So this is coming out, let's say it stays out for 2 turns, right? Because you'd flow with it's a go again, so you flow. And then you'd need 2. Maybe you keep it around for 3 turns, but probably this is only taking away 3 to 4 life. Like in most cases, it's probably actually like 2 to 3 life. Yeah, I go as high as 4. But you see my point, right? This is not the Frost Hex bomb or something like that when you can do Ice Eternal and all that, right? It's not the same thing, okay? Plus, again, this channels and it just doesn't stay around. So that comparison to Frost Hex isn't entirely and by entirely I mean like it's really not 1-to-1 at all, but in terms of like functionally what it's trying to do, I think at least you understood what I was driving at there. So let's go into some of the ice cards that he can run, and again I do expect there to be more in the future, but let's go back to some of the just like old dirty ones that are like commons and rares. So Frostfang, man, I used to hate this card in the Oldhim days, right? If Frostfang hits a hero, they discard a card unless they pay 2. Comes for 5, breakpoint. So he's either taking 2 cards or making you block with very, very valuable equipment and putting 1s on it, which then you can then blow up. There you go. So Frostfang seems really good. Icy Encounter, 2/6. Seems fine, right? Seems like I can get the job done. Throw a Frostbite when you do it, right? For each one of these. Frostfang was always so dirty with Tunic up and a frickin' pummel. They always have the frickin' pummel. You know how it is. But man, that's those 2 threats right there. Now, let me know below. There are tons of other combos you can do, right? I mean, you've got Ice Instance and Polar Cap, or no, Polar. I'll put it. I forget. Polar Blast. There we go. You know which one I'm talking about. You ice people know which one I'm talking about, right? Lots of options there for again the go again, right? And that's to help you get the 2 kind of the point. If we go back to Channel Mount Ison, right? So I find this all very interesting. It also seems, to me on the surface, to be a lot more fair than necessarily what we've seen before, right? And I think it goes back to my personal feelings. Like I think ice is not only fine, but is probably a good thing, right? Especially if you look at like a pretty aggro heavy meta like we are right now. Florian's probably going to love it when he pops up because like it'll kind of shift it to some mid-range, and Florian's pretty good. So we'll see how everybody deals with that. But, slowing it down, having some frostbite out there is not a bad thing. It's just the instant frostbite to completely kill your turn when you're already doing your thing. At least with JARL, you can mostly plan for what you're going to deal with, right? Mostly. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Now, I do want to point out, let's go ahead and go back to JARL. Okay. He says, whenever you play an ice card, create a frostbite token. So that doesn't mean that you don't have instant ice. Okay. So that's going to be very interesting to see how the smart kids end up building him with that, because we're so used to Guardians doing maybe a setup, but you just lob bombs, right? And I think he's going to play very differently, or I think he could potentially play very differently. I mean, again, throwing 5-for-9s and stuff still feels pretty good, but I do wonder, because you're going to try and take advantage of the... I wonder, though, if it's not like the Riptide thing where, you know, the Riptide's traps are a trap. I wonder if like too much ice isn't a trap for him, right? Because you also look at blocking, and we've gotten very used to Guardians blocking well. So I think there's a lot to explore here, and it's going to be very cool because this comes after Worlds, right? So one of my favorite times of the year of all Flesh and Blood is that lull after Worlds. Now, sure, we have Skirmish, so let's just say after Skirmish until the next set drops, you've got a good 6 to 7 weeks or so where people are on a break, and it's a really good time for a lot of creativity. And I think that him dropping basically at the cap of that is going to be really fun to see where this goes. So anyway, that'll do it for me today. Let me know if you're excited, right? I think it's very fair to be, even if you're not an Ice fan, I think it's very fair to be excited about this, to see how it changes things, because I think it's going to have to. And it's also really fun that it's coming it's coming after everything's really kind of wrapped up. He doesn't affect Blitz, right? Because he's CC only, doesn't affect Blitz into Skirmish 10. Might affect LL, but probably not, but we'll see. Anyway, let me know what you're thinking. Thanks, folks, for watching. Go Commando.